Welcome to Murder Road Trip. I'm your host, Haley, and on today's road trip to Wichita, Kansas, we will be snacking on Special K cereal and Sweet Tarts soft and chewy ropes as we discuss serial killer BTK, aka Dennis Rader. Joining me on today's road trip is my friend Amy. Amy is the artist behind the Murder Road Trip logo. Amy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Haley. However, if I do, I'm going to have to kill you.
Ugh, damn it.
I'm going to have to hunt down all your listeners and do the same. With that being said, my name's Amy. I'm from Michigan, and I'm an artist/art teacher. Pretty boring.
You need to teach art to me.
I'd love to. If you were in Kansas, it's kind of hard.
I don't understand your talent. It blows my mind. I cannot just look at something and draw it, and most of the time I can't even draw a stick figure, so you blow my mind.
Right. I mean, it's like I tell everybody, you're either born with it or not. I don't think it's anything you can learn. So.
I agree with you. I actually wrote about that in one of my classes. There's a theory that if you do something for 10,000 hours, that you'll be an expert at it. I don't think that's true, because I don't think if I drew for 10,000 hours that I would be as good as somebody who's the natural.
Right. No.
Yeah, I don't agree. So, can you tell us where we can find your artwork?
Sure. I have it listed on my Etsy page, which is etsy.com/shop/angellustart. You can always reach me at my Twitter, which is at Amy DELAKAT.
Awesome. And do you accept requests for commission art?
Absolutely. I'll do whatever you want. Whatever you need.
That's true, guys. I've sent her some really stupid stuff, and she's done it. So thank you for being my road trip buddy.
Thanks for picking me up.
Of course. When I have a co-host, I usually ask them what topic they would like to discuss. Amy, what made you pick Dennis Rader?
Well, let's see. I thought about it, and Dennis Rader he's different, to say the least. A lot of serial killers, you find the same themes. You know, you can find the same behaviors and stuff. And while Dennis Rader had a lot of those behaviors, he also had a lot of weird hang-ups or idiosyncrasies, I guess. And just the fact that he was so egotistical and loved the attention, I think it brought out a little more interest in me towards him.
I agree. I think it's always really interesting when the killer is willing to talk to people. Like, it just seems more exciting because you get the information from the mouth of the person who did it.
Right. I mean, he didn't try to hide anything. I mean, he was hiding basic fact of who he was, but other than that, he wanted everybody to know what he did, and he wanted to be searched for, and he wanted to play those mind games where a lot of killers want to be back in the shadows. They don't want to get caught. They don't want to be in the spotlight.
Right. He was not like that. He was like, if you keep me out of the spotlight, I'm going to be so mad.
He's a total attention whore.
Yeah, he still is, which I'm fine with.
Yes.
All right, are you ready to go?
Right, let's go.
We lost the station again.
Keep trying.
I'm safe.
Hold on. Let me try this one.
Stop. That's it. Turn it up. Turn it up. Dennis Lynn Rader was born on March 9th, 1945 in Columbus, Kansas. It is said that he was born with a frown and a dimple. His parents, high school sweethearts Dorothea and William, would go on to have 3 more sons after Dennis. The family lived with Dorothea's parents until Dennis was 3 or 4 years old. Then the family moved to Wichita, Kansas. When Dorothea was pregnant with Dennis, she fell off a horse. She also dropped him on his head when he was 6 or 8 months old, and the right side of his head was hit very hard. The reason this is so important, as most people know, is that head injuries are often linked with violent behavior. As a young boy, Dennis became active in his church. He always had a great love for God and really enjoyed going to church each Sunday. However, his dedication to his religion didn't seem to have much of an effect on his conscience during many of his future endeavors, and would surely be frowned upon by his fellow church members if they were to ever find out about them. At around 10 or 11 years old, Dennis first began peeping in the windows of his neighbors. He also began thinking about bondage when his mother got her hand stuck in the couch. I know, she got her wedding ring stuck on a piece inside the couch, and she was like, go get help. She couldn't get it out. That's
just crazy to spark a bondage fantasy, though.
I know, it's so interesting to find out where people get their, their fetishes. He was probably going through puberty at this time, and somehow he just got linked. It's just so fascinating.
I'm glad he told everybody about it.
I wouldn't have told people if that was where I got my fetish,
Especially from your mother.
Like, I wouldn't be like, my mom got her hand stuck in the couch.
And I got hard.
Yeah. It's so weird.
Right.
But at least he told us.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Dennis.
Yes, thank you so much. He loved the idea of a woman stuck needing help. He would fantasize about this scenario frequently, although in his fantasies, he always replaced his mother with another woman, which is good.
That's good.
By 13, he was drawing sexual sketches, and he would eventually work his way up to practicing bondage in his parents' basement.
Oh, man.
Were you drawing sexual sketches at that age?
I tried to think about that. I don't ever remember doing that. I remember drawing inappropriate stuff in school and passing it around, and everybody would laugh and say, hey, draw this, draw that. But I don't ever remember them being sexual sketches or practice, bondage.
Right.
So,
but now all you draw is sexual sketches, right?
That's all I do, yes.
Which is how I met you.
During those chat rooms. As a teenager, Dennis read a detective magazine while waiting in a barbershop. The magazine featured an article on the infamous serial killer H.H. Holmes. The section detailed the murder hotel Holmes built for himself in Chicago. While reading this article, Dennis began fantasizing about a place where he could bind women without anyone noticing, and he would continue to build on that fantasy. His sanctuary would be located in a red barn on a country road along a river just outside of Wichita. The barn would be big enough to build a small train track where he could bound women. The barn had different levels and a silo. It could include a vault where he could suffocate some of his victims. He also wanted to include a large acid vat for disposal and a peephole for watching his victims suffer, just as Holmes had. Okay, I was thinking about this. Building a train track so he could, I don't know. That just reminds me of, cartoons and stuff.
Yeah, he had this weird fascination with trains, and, that was his ultimate fantasy, was to bind a woman to a train track.
When Bugs Bunny put on the lipstick and played the girl bunny?
Mm-hmm.
And then she always ended up getting tied up on train track and stuff. See, that's what comes to my mind.
He was probably watching that as a young kid, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, he got his fetish from watching his mom and part of his fetish from watching Looney Tunes. It's totally natural.
There would be a swimming pool in the bottom, a laundry room to clean clothes after torture, a kitchen to sharpen knives, storage area to store tools, a library to store photos of his victims, living room, bedroom for binding, a den. What's the den for?
He wanted the den for, just a man cave, almost like a dartboard. It wasn't anything sexual.
Dartboard, okay, gotcha. All right, a fireplace to keep warm, and lots of wooden beams. It would have to have a good security system. The main area would include a small elevator with a spiral staircase surrounding it. He even thought about making the lair handicap accessible by installing a track that would move from room to room. He wasn't going to bind handicapped people. He was going to make people handicapped with his bindings. That's really messed up.
Yeah, that's pretty serious.
The top floor would contain a control room, a room where Dennis could come up with new ideas and make big decisions. He'd probably have like a really big drafting table.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Put his thinking cap on.
I'm sure he literally had one because he was like that.
He was like that. Dennis would also install a bomb made of a propane tank and gasoline that could be sparked by the alarm system if need be. The sanctuary would be called the Lair.
Ooh,
How creative.
so scary. He is so ridiculous. Dennis joined the Boy Scouts. He learned how to tie many different styles of knots. This, of course, only served to strengthen his bondage practices. I bet he got like every badge in knot tying possible.
Get all the badges.
Yeah. By age 15, Dennis was no longer satisfied with simply peeping at people through their windows. He needed more of a thrill than peeping could ever offer him. He needed to ramp up the intensity and excitement of his secret nighttime activities. So he decided to begin breaking into nearby homes of different girls he found attractive. He would very quietly sneak inside and then go through all of their feminine items, often taking a pair of panties or other insignificant pieces of clothing that he felt wouldn't be noticed or missed by the owner. So creepy to think that this guy broke into your house and then just went through all of your personal feminine stuff.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't. His nighttime activities. It's disgusting.
Like, sleep at night, Dennis. Be normal.
Yeah, right? Netflix, whatever.
Right. Jeez. At 17, Dennis was driving at a dangerously high rate of speed during weather conditions and took a curve much faster than he should have. He ended up crashing his vehicle into a ditch and broke the windshield with his head during the impact. This would result in the second serious head injury that Dennis had incurred in his 17 short years of life.
I hit the windshield at 15.
And you
That's
turned out
bad.
fine.
Oh, I'm completely fine.
Fine.
Completely normal.
In 1963, life was going well for Dennis. He graduated from Wichita Heights High School and bought himself a spiffy new car shortly thereafter. It was a 1958 Ford, and he was proud of it. For the first time in his life, he began to have relationships with women. This was new and exciting for Dennis. He also enrolled in Wichita State University, but eventually dropped out. In 1965, Dennis went on to enroll in Kansas Wesleyan, a college in Salina, Kansas. However, just as with Wichita State, his time there was brief due to failing multiple classes, so he dropped out yet again.
Like a lot of serial killers, he decided to enlist in the United States Air Force. You noticed that a lot of them were military?
Oh, yeah. I sometimes wonder if they think if they join that they can murder legally, basically, but it seems like none of them ever did.
Either that or they're hoping that, the military lifestyle and the structure of it might actually get them off that path. I don't know.
That's true. It would be so interesting to know how many times has the military saved somebody from going on to be a serial killer.
Right, the psychology behind that, I'm sure there's got to be something to it, because a lot of them, there's a lot of military.
Yeah.
Anyway, he attended basic training on Lackland Air Force Base in Texas, and went to tech school at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. During his time in the military, he would serve in Okinawa, Japan. While overseas, Dennis lost his virginity to a sex worker at 22 years old. That's a special first time.
It seems like a lot of serial killers also lose their virginity to prostitutes while overseas in the military.
Right. As always, his sexual fantasies continued to fully consist of acts of bondage and control upon women. When he could not perform these acts on the sex workers he had encounters with, he would instead cross-dress and wear makeup to fulfill these fantasies. Okay, there's a vision. See, there's another Bugs.
I know, that's why I was laughing when you said that Bugs Bunny would wear the lipstick. I was like, he literally is Bugs Bunny.
He literally was. I mean, I think, I don't know why my brain is tying these two things together, Dennis Rader and Bugs Bunny. I don't know.
I'm
is
never going to
happening.
be able to look at Bugs Bunny the same again, and it's fine. I like it.
That's good. Okay. All right. Dennis was discharged from the Air Force in August of 1970. At this point, he moved back to the Wichita, Kansas area, where he soon got a job working in a supermarket and began dating Paula Dietz. After a brief courtship, Dennis and Paula were married on May 22, 1971. Around the time of his wedding, Dennis enrolled in Butler County Community College. While in college, Dennis remained a lone wolf. They moved into their first home, a rental, but they had many plans for their future, and they were excited to embark on their new journey together as a couple. But Dennis still couldn't stop his constant thoughts and fantasies of tying up women and rendering them helpless to his complete and utter control over them. He began reading a lot of true crime novels again, and even bought himself a mini hit kit. The kit was made up of ropes, tape, cords, and things of that nature. He really wanted to try out some light bondage with Paula. However, after doing it just once, Paula said she did not like it and never tried it on her again.
Poor Dennis.
Oh, poor Dennis. Sorry, Paula's not down with the dirty.
You know, the 70s, I don't know how open they were. I feel like bondage is still kind of taboo, like we don't talk about it as openly. So I imagine, 40, 50 years ago, they really didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
In 1972, Dennis finally graduated and received his associate's degree in electronics from Butler County. In 1973, he put his new degree to use and began working at Cessna, but he was let go after 9 months due to the struggling economy at the time. This layoff was detrimental to Dennis and became a real turning point in his life. He became extremely angry and decided he needed to do something he loved more than almost anything else: break and enter into houses. This break-in would be the first of many, many more to come. He was so upset by losing his job because his wife was like what he called her, the breadwinner. And that was just really hard for him to deal with, the fact that he wasn't making money, but his wife was. And so.
Right.
At one point after his layoff, Dennis went to the Twin Lakes Mall where an attractive bank teller caught his attention. He began stalking her and even tried to abduct her, but failed. It was at this point that he decided abducting a woman out in the open was not a safe option for him, or anyone.
Right.
He needed to take a victim in a house. In 1974, Dennis enrolled himself once again in Wichita State University to continue his studies. In early January of 1974, Dennis began stalking the neighborhood of what were soon to be his very first victims. He had an overwhelming urge to hang someone. Later, Dennis would name this feeling of needing to kill Factor X. And he said that all serial killers have it. It's just like this feeling that you have to kill. But his feeling of killing was hanging instead of stabbing or something like that. And he came up with a name for his first project when he called his hits projects. And this one was going to be called Project Little Mex.
Now, why is it got to go there?
Yeah.
Triggered.
Yeah. It's so racist.
Right? Oh my gosh. All right. On January 15th, 1974, Dennis drove to the parking lot, across the street, and walked to his first victim's house. He arrived at the Otero residence at 8:20 a.m. This seems like a very odd time to do this, but okay.
So he had stalked them, and he knew that the family left at, I can't remember the exact time, but left to drop kids off at school. And so he knew that they would be back at this time. He had planned it all out, but it does seem like a weird time.
Yeah, especially since it's like everybody's going to be there.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay. The house was less than 10 miles from his own home. After seeing some of the members of the household leave, Dennis promptly cut the phone lines and snuck into the home through the back door. Upon entering the house, Dennis pulled out his pistol and told 38-year-old Joseph Otero Sr., from here on referred to as Mr. Otero, that he was a hungry, wanted man, and that he was there to steal their car. he told Mr. Otero to lay face down on the living room floor. The family dog was causing quite a ruckus, so Dennis asked Mr. Otero if he could let the dog out. Mr. Otero agreed, and one of his children swiftly sent the dog outside. Dennis then led the 4 family members to the back bedroom, where he proceeded to tie each one of the family members' hands and feet up. They started complaining about being tied up, so Dennis loosened some of the bonds. Mr. Otero had a cracked rib during a recent car accident, so Dennis put a pillow down for his head and put a jacket underneath him. It's very nice of him.
Yes, I also love that he didn't hurt the dog.
Yeah.
Thank God. Yeah, just let it out. There's no need to hurt it.
No, put him outside. He's causing such a ruckus.
Mm-hmm.
The family proceeded to tell Dennis that he could have the car and whatever money they had, even though they really didn't have much to offer. It was at this point that Dennis realized that the family would easily be able to ID him since he wasn't wearing a mask. He decided to, quote, put him down, I guess, or strangle them, end quote.
So nice to say, like they're a dog.
Put him down.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. In the testimony he gave, the judge was like, put him down. What?
Can you clarify that for the court, please?
And he just now is realizing that he's now wearing a mask and they're going to be able to ID them.
I don't think
For
he
being
really
a
thought
planner.
Right. You can't think of everything, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like the first thing I would think of if I was going to murder someone. Like, cover my face, because what if people saw him like walking into the house or...
Right. It's a pretty important piece of the puzzle there.
Right. Dennis began first with Mr. Otero by placing a plastic bag over his head and then tying some cords around his neck and tightening them. Dennis had never strangled anyone before and didn't realize how difficult it was to kill someone that way. At this point in time, Mrs. Julie Otero, who was 34, was tied up on the bed, as was their daughter, Josephine, who was 11. The son, 9-year-old Junior, was also tied up on the floor. After placing the bag on Mr. Otero's head, Dennis moved on to Mrs. Otero. But Dennis did not realize that Mr. Otero had not died yet. Mr. Otero tore a hole in the bag, and the rest of the family started panicking, so Dennis began working faster. Dennis put either a cloth or a shirt over Mr. Otero's head, then a bag, and another bag, then tied it down. Dennis didn't stand there and watch Mr. Otero die. He had 3 other family members to worry about. He strangled Mrs. Otero next, then Josephine. He thought they were dead, but they had just passed out. Then Dennis put a bag on Junior's head as Mrs. Otero came to. Dennis then re-strangled Mrs. Otero with a cork and a rope and finally was able to kill her. Before Dennis killed Mrs. Otero, she had asked him to save her son, so Dennis took the bag off of Junior's head. But after Mrs. Otero was really dead, Dennis took Junior into a different bedroom and killed him the same way he killed Mr. Otero, with a few bags and a shirt or cloth.
Dennis, you're a hot mess right now.
Oh my God. Yeah, strangling one person would be hard, but 4?
Right. After the son was dead, Dennis realized that Josephine was still awake. He took her to the basement and had a short conversation with her before he hung her. Josephine asked Dennis what was going to happen to her, and Dennis told her that she was going to go to heaven to be with the rest of her family.
So sweet.
That poor kid. After Josephine was dead, Dennis had some sexual fantasies and masturbated on her body. At some point, Dennis had removed all of Josephine's clothes, minus her sweatshirt and her socks. During his confession, Dennis said that he had trouble killing Josephine because her hair kept getting in the way.
I also wanted to say that he actually, as he masturbated, touched one of her breasts. And later on, he would say that this was his most regrettable murder because he felt he shouldn't have touched her like that.
God. After the killings, Dennis got the keys to the car, cleaned up the house, took a radio and Mr. Otero's watch, made sure everything was packed up, and left through the front door. He then drove to Dillon's, a local grocery store in the area, left the Otero car there, and he walked back to his own personal car. During his walk, he realized that he lost his knife. He drove back to the Otero house, parked in the garage, found the knife, and then drove to the woods to burn his Project Little Mech's notes, sketches, and the rope.
That was smart.
Yes. The Otero's other 3 children arrived home from school to a silent home and had the traumatizing experience of discovering the remains of their 4 beloved family members. During his confession, Dennis admitted to not knowing that Mr. Otero would be at the home. He had targeted Mrs. Otero and Josephine because of their Hispanic ethnicity. He said he had a special affection for Mexican women.
So at least he's not racist against Mexican women.
No, he's just a little un-PC. I don't understand a little Mex. I don't know.
I don't understand a lot of his verbiage.
He's weird.
It would be only a few months later before Dennis would strike again for Project Lights Out. On April 4th, 1974, he parked at the Wichita State University campus and walked to his next victim's house. Dennis then broke into the back door of 21-year-old Catherine Bright's home. He walked through the house to figure out the best place to wait for the woman to arrive. But as he was trying to find a place to hide, Catherine and her 19-year-old brother Kevin walked through the door. Dennis wasn't expecting Kevin to come home. Dennis left his hiding place and approached the 2 siblings. He told them he was wanted in California and that he needed a car. He then proceeded to force Kevin to tie Catherine to a chair. After tying Kevin to the bedpost, Dennis took Catherine to another bedroom. Dennis returned to the room where Kevin was kept, and a fight ensued. Somehow, during the brief time Dennis was gone with Catherine, Kevin's garrote, an apparatus used to strangle someone, broke. Or he broke his bonds on his own. Kevin quickly jumped up and Dennis shot him in the head. Dennis thought Kevin was dead, so he returned to Catherine's room. He started to strangle her, but the bonds weren't secure on her either. They fought for a while, and Dennis got the best of her, and she eventually went down. Dennis heard some movement in Kevin's room, so he went back there. Dennis tried to strangle Kevin, but Kevin grabbed Dennis's other handgun from his shoulder holster. At this point, more fighting ensued, and Dennis was able to shoot Kevin again. With Kevin down for good that time, Dennis went back to check on Catherine. She was a fighter, though, and the strangling just wasn't working, so Dennis ended up stabbing her 11 times in her torso. And if you watch the testimony, he says he only stabbed her like 2 or 3 times, but he ended up stabbing her 11 times. And while stabbing her, Dennis remembers losing control. He said the scene was a total mess.
He's not very good at this.
No,
I'm surprised he was away for so long. Away from it, or away with it for so long.
That's what I was thinking as I was reading it. I was like, why didn't he just give up? I would have been so frustrated.
Right, you shoot the dude in the head, and he doesn't die. And what is he wearing? Is he like, he's got shoulder holster? He's probably got like one on his leg.
Yeah, he's probably got one just everywhere. He's just covered in guns.
He heard the front door open, and figured the police were there. He thought, that's it. He stepped out into the room that had the front door, where he saw Kevin running down the street. There goes Kevin, shot in the head twice. He knew he had to get out of there fast, so he quickly cleaned up what he could and fled the premises. Dennis jumped in the car, but could not get the vehicle started, so he took off running. He ran back to the campus, which is about a 20-minute walk, where his car was parked. He cleaned himself up and put his clothes in a plastic bag. Then he took them to his parents' house, where he stored them in the garage. He would later return and burn the clothes. He threw the gun away in a nearby creek. It seems like everything that could go wrong goes wrong.
Oh, yeah. I just don't understand why he kept going.
Right. Just give up.
Right.
Something he's not good at, Dennis.
Catherine died at a hospital a few hours later from 11 stab wounds in her abdomen. While speaking to the police, Kevin described the killer as an average-sized guy with a bushy mustache and psychotic eyes. Dennis does not recall if he brought a kill kit like he did with the Oteros. He believes he did not bring a kill kit because if he had, then Kevin would have died. In October of 1974, an article came out stating that 3 men knew the detail of the Otero family murders. Dennis did not like this at all. He did not want someone else getting credit for his actions. He wrote and hid a letter that detailed the murders of the Otero family inside a book in the Wichita Public Library. Dennis then called a columnist at the Wichita Eagle and told him to look in the library in a book called Applied Engineering Mechanics. The letter read,
"Those 3 dudes you have in custody are just talking to get publicity. They know nothing at all. I did it by myself with no one's help. I'm sorry this happened to this society. It's hard to control myself. You probably call me psychotic with sexual perversion hang-up. Where this monster enters my brain, I will never know, but it's here to stay. How does one cure himself? If you ask for help, that you've killed 4 people, they will laugh and hit the panic button and call the cops. I can't stop it, so the monster goes on. And it hurt me as well, society. Society can be thankful that there are ways for people like me to relieve myself at the time of day dreams of some victim being tortured and being mine. It is a big, complicated game my friend of the monster plays, putting victims' numbers down, following them and checking up on them, waiting in the dark. Waiting. The pressure is great, and sometimes he can run the game to his liking. Maybe you can stop him. I can't.
Also in 1974, Dennis got a job working for ADT Security Services. He would work there until 1988. Dennis also found out he was going to be a father. Dennis and Paula's son, Brian, was born on July 26, 1975. He would spend the next few years stalking and attempting other projects, but none were successful until March of 1977. On March 17, 1977, Dennis traveled a little over 7 miles from his home to a Dillon's parking lot across the street from his next intended victim. Dennis had watched this residence for quite a while and had planned to kill the target. He had attached a project to this person. This one was entitled Project Green or Greenwood. When he walked to the home and knocked on the door, no one answered. Dennis was all keyed up and knew the neighborhood layout well, so he started walking through the neighborhood. As he was walking down Hydraulic Street, he met a young boy and asked him if he could ID some pictures. After talking to the boy, he tried knocking on a few other doors, but no one answered.
Dennis decided to go to the house where the boy had gone into. Dennis knocked on the door, told the person who answered the door that he was a private detective, showed the picture that he shown the boy, and forced himself in. After walking in, Dennis pulled out a pistol. The person who opened the door was 24-year-old Shirley Vian. Dennis told her that he had a problem with sexual fantasies and that he needed to tie her up. He also told her that he may need to tie the kids up. She was nervous and smoked a cigarette.
I love that. I love it. She was like, fine, can I smoke a cigarette though to help my nerves?
Oh man, I'm so nervous. I need to smoke. He tied up the kid in her bedroom, and the kids started crying. Dennis decided that having kids in Vian's bedroom wouldn't work, so he and Vian took them to the bathroom. Dennis gave the kids some toys and blankets to make them comfortable, and then tied the door shut. Dennis and Vian went back to her bedroom, and they both shoved the bed up against the other bedroom door, and Dennis proceeded to tie her up. Vian threw up, and then Dennis got her a glass of water. Dennis finished tying Vian up with a rope. The rope was used to tie her legs to the bedpost. The rope also worked its way up her body, all the way to her neck, and then he used the rope to strangle Vian to death. Another situation where everything is just not going right for him.
I know. And I just want to say that it seems like he's being nice. With Mr. Otero, he put the pillow under him, and with Vian, he was like, let me get you a glass of water. He's not being nice. He just read somewhere that the more accommodating you are to a victim, the more likely they are not to fight you. And so he was so nice on the surface to them just so that they wouldn't fight him and he could kill them more easily.
Didn't want to get his ass kicked.
Right.
Right. The kids were screaming and banging on the bathroom door. So Dennis packed up his kill kit, grabbed Shirley's panties, put everything in his briefcase, and went back to his car in the Dillon's parking lot. The children were able to free themselves and call the police. Dennis later wrote a poem based on Goldilocks about Shirley.
Shirley locks, wilt thou be mine? Thou shalt not scream, not yet fee the line, but lay on a cushion and think of me and death, and how it's going to be.
When Dennis would stalk or troll the area where 25-year-old Nancy Fox lived, he would pay close attention to her residence. After spotting Nancy Fox, Dennis did a little homework on her. To find out her name, Dennis checked her mailbox. He also found out where she worked, Halesburg, and stopped by to size her up. Nancy Fox became Project Fox, Foxtail, or Fox Hunt. On December 8, 1977, Dennis parked his car 2 or 3 blocks away from Fox's house. Her house was less than 10 miles from his own. He knocked on her door to make sure no one was home, and then walked around to the back of the house, cut the phone lines, broke in, and waited in her kitchen for her to arrive home. When Nancy Fox came home, Dennis told her that he had a sexual problem and that he needed to tie her up and have sex with her. Nancy was upset, so Dennis talked with her for a while. As Nancy smoked a cigarette, Dennis went through her purse. After finishing the cigarette, Nancy said, "Let's get this over with so I can go call the police." Nancy went to the bathroom, and Dennis told her to make sure she came out of the bathroom fully undressed. You know, it's the 70s when everyone's smoking.
I know. It's like, I don't know. That's like the last thing I would think about doing in that situation.
Right.
But then again, yeah.
I guess you never know till you're put into it.
Right. I haven't been put into that yet.
Yet. When she came out of the bathroom, Dennis handcuffed her. He then laid Nancy on the bed, tied her feet, got on top of her. He had undressed himself to a degree as well, reached over to grab a belt, and then strangled her with it. After doing this, Dennis took the belt off and tightly tied pantyhose around her neck. He also removed the handcuffs and tied her hands with pantyhose. Then he masturbated. After he was done masturbating, he dressed himself and rummaged through the house. He took her driver's license and some lingerie. He then cleaned the house up, made sure all of his personal items were picked up, and quickly left. The next day, he called the police from a payphone to give them Fox's name and address so they could discover his handiwork.
In January of 1978, Dennis mailed his poem about Shirley to the Wichita Eagle. Later in 1978, he sent a package to a television station in Wichita. The package contained a letter claiming that the writer had murdered the Otero family: Shirley, Leanne, Nancy Fox, and Catherine Bright. In the letter, Dennis suggested nicknames for himself. One of the nicknames was BTK. The package also included a poem about Nancy. The letter read,
"The public knows there's a psycho running around, loose, strangling mostly women. There are 7 in the ground. Who will be next? How many do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention? Do the cops think that all these deaths are not related? Golly gee. Yes, the MO is different in each, but look at the pattern it's developing. The victims are tied up, most of them women, phone cut, bring some bondage matter, sadist tendencies, no struggle outside the death spot, no witnesses except the Vane's kids. They were very lucky. A phone call saved them. I was going to tape the boys and put plastic bags over their heads like I did Joseph and Shirley, and then hang the girl. God, oh God, what a beautiful sexual relief that would have been. Josephine, when I hung her, really turned me on. Her pleading for mercy, and the rope took hold. She's helpless, staring at me with wide, terror-filled eyes, and the rope getting tighter and tighter. You don't understand these things because you're not under the influence of Factor X. The same thing that made Son of Sam, Jack the Ripper, Harvey Glateman, Boston Strangler, Dr. H.H. Holmes, Pantyhose Strangler of Florida, the Hillside Strangler, Ted of the West Coast, and many of the more infamous characters' kills, which seems senseless, but we accept death and are being caught and put away. It's a terrible nightmare, but you see, I don't lose any sleep over it. After a thing like Fox, I come home and go about life like anyone else, and it will be like that until the urge hits me again. It's not continuous, and I don't have a lot of time. It takes time to set a kill. One mistake, and it's all over. Since I about blew it on this phone, handwriting is out-of-letter guide. It's too long, and a typewriter can be traced too. My short poem of death, and maybe drawing it later on a real picture, maybe a tape of the sound will come your way. How will you know me? Before a murder or murders you will receive the copy of the initials BTK. You keep that copy of the original. It will show up someday, I guess. Who? May you not be the unlucky one. P.S. How about some name for me? It's time. 7 down and many more to go. I like the following. How about you? The BTK Strangler, Wichita Strangler, Poetic Strangler, the Bondage Strangler, or Psycho, the Wichita Hangman, the Wichita Executioner, the Garrote Phantom, the Asphyxiator. Number 5, you guess the motive and victim. Bedroom hand tied behind the back with a black tape and cord, feet and ankles with black tape and legs, ankles tied west head of the bed, with small off of the white cord, wrap around legs, hands, arm, finally the neck, many times. a off-white plastic bag over her head loop with a pink nightie, was barefooted. She was sick, used a glass of water, and smoked 1 or 2 cigarettes. The house is a total mess, and kids took some toys with them to the bathroom against the east bathroom door. Chose at random with some pre-planning. Motive Factor X. Number 7, one Nancy Fox laying belly down, made bed in the southwest bedroom, hands tied behind back, with red pantyhose, feet together with yellow nightie, semi-nude with a pink sweater and small necklace. Glasses on the west dresser. Panties below the butt, many different than the hosiery. She had a smoke and went to the bathroom before the final act. Very neat housekeeper. In dresser rifle, Purgian kitchen, empty paper bag, white coat in the living room. Heat up to about 90 degrees, Christmas tree lights on, nighties and hose around them. Hose bag of orange color and its hosiery the bed driver's license gone. Seminal stain on or in the blue women's wear. Motive Factor X. Number 8, next victim, maybe. You will find her hanging with wire noose. Hands behind her back with black tape or cord. Feet with tape or cord gag and the cord around the body and the neck hooded, maybe. Possible seminal stain in the anus or on the body. Will be chosen at random. Some pre-planning. Motive Factor X.
The bum read.
Oh, death to Nancy. What is this that I can see? Cold, icy hands taking hold of me. For death has come, you all can see. Hell has opened its gate to trick me. Oh, death, can't you spare me? Over for another year. I'll stuff your jaws till you can't talk. I'll bind your legs till you can't walk. I'll tie your hands till you can't make a stand. And finally, I'll close your eyes so you can't see. I'll bring sexual death onto you for me.
On June 13th, 1978, Dennis's second child was born, a daughter named Carrie Lynn. On April 28th, 1979, Dennis attempted Project Pinecone. That's a great name, Dennis.
So weird.
So weird. He was to bind, torture, and kill a 24-year-old woman he had noticed in the neighborhood. The woman was not around when he broke into her house, so he cut the phone lines and burglarized the home. Later, Dennis looked up the address in the phone book and learned that the resident was a woman named Anna. On June 15th, Anna received a poem in the mail. The poem read,
Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear? 'Twas the perfect plan of deviant pleasure so bold on a spring night, my inner feeling hot with propension of the new awakening season, worn, wet with inner fear and rapture, my pleasure of entanglement, like new vines so tight. Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear? Drop of fear, fresh spring rain would roll down from your nakedness to set over the lofty fever that burns within. In that small world of longing, fear, rapture, and desperation, the games we play fall on devil ears. Fantasy spring forth mounts to storm fury, and the winter calm at the end. Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear? Alone now in another time span I lay with sweet and rapture, garments across most private thought. Bed of spring moist grass clean before the sun, enslaved with control. Warm wind scenting the air, sunlight sparkle with its tears in the eyes so deep and clear. Alone again I trod and passed memory of mirrors, and pondered why you, number 8, was not. Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear?
Dennis would later find out that Anna was not the woman he had seen in the neighborhood. Anna was the woman's 63-year-old grandmother. Dennis graduated from Wichita State University in May of 1979 with a bachelor's in administration of justice. Of course he did. Until his next murder, Dennis kept busy with the kids, work, and stalking for more potential victims.
So Anna was a widow, and the letter, the poem that he sent to her, he addressed the envelope to Anna's dead husband. In care of Anna. So that was weird. And then inside the envelope was pantyhose and an illustration of what he intended to do to her.
Oh, God.
Isn't that craziness?
This poor old lady.
And she was out square dancing. That's why she wasn't there.
Ugh, good for her.
But when she got home, she found a wire-shaped, like a noose on her bed. And in previous communication that he had with the cops before that, he told them that his next victim was going to be hung. So that was kind of cool.
This lady dodged a bullet.
She sure did. One that got away.
I'm surprised he didn't try to go back,
Mm-hmm.
but he was too busy.
Yep, with the kids and work and, what did he call it? Trolling?
Yeah.
The judge is like, patrol? Are you on patrol? No, trolling.
On April 26, 1985, after a 6-year break from killing, Dennis left his son at a Boy Scout camp, parked his car in a bowling alley parking lot on Woodlawn and 21st, and changed into different clothes. He went into the bowling alley and called a taxi. He had his hit kit with him. It was in a bowling bag. His plan was to bind, torture, and kill his 53-year-old neighbor, Maureen Hedge, for Project Cookie or Deflower.
Oh my God.
So those are two completely different things.
Right?
Don't you just hate, though, when you can't settle on a name?
Why does he have the this or this? I mean, if you're going to have a project, stand behind that, Dennis.
Right. Maureen lived down the street from Dennis, 6 houses down on the same side of the street, to be precise. And I've driven by this before. Dennis's home has since been bulldozed and is gone and actually just looks like an empty lot, like there's grass growing and everything. The only reason you can tell that there was ever a house there is because where his driveway was and the sidewalk has been paved to fill in. So you can kind of see where the new concrete is. But Maureen's house is still there. Of course, other people live there, but he chose somebody really close to him, which is probably not smart.
6 houses away. Yeah, that's not smart.
Dennis chose Maureen as a victim because he was able to watch her come and go easily. Dennis swished some beer around in his mouth so the taxi driver would think he was a little drunk. He asked the taxi driver to let him out when he was just a little ways away from Hedge's house so he could get some fresh air. Dennis then walked from where the taxi let him out over to Maureen Hedge's house. He got to her house and saw her car in the driveway. Dennis thought, gee, she's not supposed to be home.
He snuck into her house, but she wasn't inside. Suddenly, he heard the front door rattling, so he quietly crept back into one of her bedrooms and hid. She came in with a male visitor. Maureen and her visitor talked for an hour or so, and then the visitor finally left. Dennis continued to hide the entire time, all the way until the wee hours of the morning, at which point he snuck into her bedroom while she was sleeping. He quickly flipped on her bathroom lights and jumped into her bed, but she was screaming so much that he felt the need to quickly strangle her manually. Since Dennis was in one of his sexual fantasies, after strangling her, he stripped and tied her up. He put her on a blanket, went through her purse and some personal items in the house, and then worked on figuring out a way to get her body out of the house. Dennis eventually moved her to the trunk of his car and then drove her to Christ Lutheran Church. He said moving a dead body was like moving a concrete box. He then took some Polaroid pictures of her in different forms of bondage. He ended up keeping the pictures and even stored some of the photos in the church's basement. Dennis then took her body back to the car and drove around trying to find the best place to hide her body. He eventually settled on a ditch in a low place on the north side of the road. He hid her there by placing some brush over the remains. He later had forgotten about the cord around her neck and returned to remove it. He threw the rest of her belongings out the window as he drove onto rural roads. She was discovered 8 days later. He forgets an awful lot. He needs some ginkgo biloba.
Oh my God. And this is a good example of him escalating. So
Right.
he hasn't moved the body from anywhere before, but for some reason, he really wants to move her to take pictures in his church's basement.
Why did he want to do that? I mean,
I couldn't find an explanation, but my only thinking is that he loved basements growing up. So maybe maybe he wanted to just...
he didn't have one or something.
That's a good point. Maybe he shouldn't have one, like you said. Dennis found his 9th victim in 28-year-old Vicky Wedgeraw. He decided that he would kill her on September 16th, 1986. He disguised himself as a telephone repairman in order to gain her trust and be invited into the home. Dennis made sure to consider every detail when preparing himself so that he'd really look the part, even so far as to wear a hard hat and carry a briefcase.
Legit.
I know. He then drove to her residence in his own car around lunchtime. He had changed into his hit clothes, which are clothes he would get rid of later, prior to showing up at her house. On his way to Wedgerall's house, Dennis stopped at another house briefly to size it up as a potential house for a future killing. As he approached Vicky's house, Dennis could hear a piano playing. Killing this victim became known as Project Piano. When Vicky answered the door, Dennis said he was working in the neighborhood to fix telephone lines. He asked if he could come inside to check out her phone lines. Vicky didn't think twice and immediately allowed Dennis in. He then went over to have a look at her phone lines, using his fake instrument to appear as if he was legitimately checking out her telephone lines.
When Vicky glanced away, trusting that Dennis was busy at work and completely oblivious to the extreme situation she was actually in, Dennis swiftly pulled out his pistol and pointed it at her, and instructed her to head to the bedroom with him. He told her he was going to have to tie her up. She was extremely emotional and terrified for her life. She fought as hard as she could, and she was able to scratch up his nose and his face. Dennis used materials Vicky had in her bedroom to tie her up. After he tied her hands, Vicky managed to break the material, and the two started fighting. Eventually, Dennis was finally able to get a nylon stocking around her neck and started strangling her. At some point, he thought Vicky was dead, so he rearranged her clothes and took some photos. But, to Dennis' surprise, Vicky suddenly woke up a short time later and mentioned that her husband would be coming home soon. Dennis hurriedly threw everything into his briefcase, grabbed her driver's license, and took off. He threw the hard hat in a dumpster, and he dumped his crime scene tools and his clothes along rural roads. When Vicky's husband Bill arrived home, he found his injured wife in their bedroom. He immediately called 911. The couple's 2-year-old son was home at the time, but he was not injured. Paramedics arrived at the scene and attempted to revive Vicky Wedgerall. She died on the way to the hospital as a result from Dennis's strangulation. Vicky's husband Bill was suspected of the murder. Unbeknownst to Dennis, though, police were able to obtain a DNA sample from under Vicky's fingernails.
Go girl. Always scratch a man's face.
Yes.
So that you can get that DNA under there.
Mm-hmm.
In 1989, Dennis became a census worker for a year, but was let go a short time later. For the next few years, he would remain unemployed, leaving him with plenty of time on his hands to continue prowling for victims. On January 18, 1991, Dennis commenced his typical routine of dropping his son off at Boy Scouts. He parked his car, made sure his kit was together, and ready to go. He changed his clothes and began his walk to the residence of his 10th victim. This project would be titled Project Dogside. Dennis had reservations about going into this particular victim's home because he had cased the place beforehand and couldn't figure out how to break in. He also knew that the victim was already inside the home. He eventually decided to take a concrete block, throw it through a plate glass window on the patio door, and head on inside the home. The soon-to-be victim, Dolores E. Davis, age 62, came out of her bedroom because she thought someone may have driven their car into her house. Dennis gave her his same old sexual fantasy spiel and handcuffed her. As he handcuffed her, he talked to her so she would calm down. After handcuffing her, he checked out where the car was, pretended to eat some food, and acted like he was leaving. Then he went back to her, removed her handcuffs, and tied her up. He proceeded to look through some of her things to find something to take. After finding a few souvenirs, Dennis strangled Davis with pantyhose. He then wrapped her in a blanket and put her in the trunk of his own car. Dennis drove a little ways and then dumped Dolores's body in some bushes.
I feel like he's winging it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't feel like he's really got his plan down anymore.
No, and I think it's because he lost his job again, and then once again, his wife was the breadwinner, and he did not like that.
Yeah, he's not feeling very manly.
Right.
Next, he drove to his church and hid all the evidence he collected under the church's shed. During this process, he realized that he had misplaced, once again, one of his guns at some point during the attack. He traveled back to her house and was relieved when he found the gun near the patio door. At this point, he stole a jewelry box, a camera, and a porcelain mask. He threw Davis's car keys onto the roof of her house and quickly walked from her house back to his car. From there, he headed back to the church to change his clothes. This whole time, Dennis had had a barn in mind that he intended to take Dolores to so that he could take pictures of her body without the risk of being interrupted. He returned to her body, put the body in the car, and headed toward the barn, but it began to snow and he couldn't figure out where the barn was. So he found a bridge and dumped her body underneath it. He then went to a rest stop to change his clothes. At this point, he decided he was not done with Dolores. He got back into his car and returned to the body once more so that he could place the stolen porcelain mask on her face. He took a few pictures and finally headed back to the Boy Scouts to pick up his son. On the way there, he went ahead and discarded his shoes along with Dolores' belongings out the window. Her remains weren't discovered until 13 days later. How do you do all that? And then go pick up your son from Boy Scouts.
I don't know. I can't get past the mask.
The mask, yeah, I know you have, but Google the picture, guys. It's crazy.
So weird.
Masks always make things more creepy.
That's true. It's like, he was in the house and he saw the mask and he was like, I'm going to put this on her.
Right? He is winging it now. I mean, he's going back. He decided he wasn't done and went back. This is a long Boy Scout session.
Oh, yeah. They're learning knots again.
Oh, okay. It's badge time.
In May of 1991, Dennis became a dog catcher and a compliance officer for the Wichita suburb, Park City. This was yet another perfect job because it allowed him to easily continue his twisted mission of stalking for new projects. In 1996, Dennis's father passed away and he became his mother's primary caretaker. But she would still remain at her own home. She didn't come and live with him. During this time, Dennis continued reading true crime novels and would devour every article he could find about other serial killers getting caught. For instance, Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, David Parker Ray, the Toy Box Killer, and many others. He began to get really nervous that he too would be caught.
In January of 2004, Dennis read a Wichita Eagle article that talked about how few people remembered the BTK cases and how a book was being written by a local author. Dennis was scared of getting caught, but his need to be recognized outweighed his anxiety over the matter. He felt compelled to stir the pot. In March of 2004, Dennis sent a letter to the Wichita Eagle where he claimed that BTK murdered Vicki Wedgerell. He enclosed photographs and her driver's license. In May, he mailed the letter, fake IDs, and a word puzzle to a television station. A word puzzle. He put his last name in the word puzzle.
He had to have that recognition.
A few months later, in June of 2004, he taped a package to a stop sign. The package included details and sketches about the Otero family murders. The next month, he put a package in the return slot of the Wichita Library. The package included a letter that stated BTK killed a 19-year-old man in Argonia, Kansas. But this was actually untrue. The man had committed suicide. Dennis Rader's incessant need to be noticed and recognized was causing him to take risks he never had taken in the past. His ego was getting the best of him.
In October of the same year, he put an envelope in a UPS box. This envelope contained graphic bondage images, a poem, and a false autobiography about BTK. Then, in December, he left a package in Murdoch Park. The package contained Nancy Fox's driver's license and a bonded doll with a plastic bag over its head. 1 month later, on January 8, 2005, Dennis put a cereal box, Special K, for K, in the bed of a truck at a Home Depot, but the owner just threw it away, giving it no thought at all. Police were able to view video footage from the parking lot. They saw a man drop off the cereal box, then get into a black Jeep Cherokee. They later found the box, and it contained a doll resembling Josephine Otero, as well as more of the fake autobiography and some jewelry. Near the end of January, Dennis sent postcards to a local television station and left yet another cereal box, Post Toasties, for T, in a rural location. The box included another doll that was meant to symbolize Josephine Otero's murder. I also love that he put it on cereal boxes because he was a serial killer.
Good.
Like,
It is so corny.
he's such a dad. His dad jokes.
Yes, dad jokes. He is so corny. Seriously. Oh, here's another fun fact. All his letters that he wrote were just riddled with grammatical errors.
Oh, God,
And they were
yeah.
so hard to read. And they thought that he was doing it on purpose, to make it, not sound like him talking or whatever. Really, just because he was a dumbass. He wasn't smart. And, but his wife found one of his letters that he left out on accident, supposedly. And he said it was just a writing exercise for one of his classes. But a couple years later, when she was reading a letter he was writing to one of his brother, or to his brother, she said to him, "You spell just like the BTK."
Oh, man.
And it was never brought up. That point, he got hard, I bet you.
Oh, yeah. He's like, oh, someone noticed me.
When talking to the police through his letters, Dennis asked if it was possible for him to be traced through a floppy disk. Police, of course, said no, even though they absolutely could. So rather than double-checking his information, Dennis simply took the police department's word for it and promptly sent a package to the Fox TV affiliate station in Wichita on February 16, 2005. The package included a floppy disk, a gold necklace with a medallion, and a copy of the cover of the Rules of Prey novel. And it's funny when he said to the police, "Can someone be tracked through a floppy disk?" And he says, "And don't lie." Like, that's ridiculous.
Like the police are like, oh shit, he said don't lie. Guess we can't.
Oh, we better tell him the truth. We better not take this opportunity.
Right.
Once they received the package, police were easily able to find the data information on the floppy disk. The data information showed that the disk had been used at Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita, Kansas, and the last modifier was someone named Dennis. So, police looked up the members of the church, and what do you know? A man named Dennis Rader just happened to be the president of the church council. They went to speak with the pastor of the church, and he said that Dennis did indeed have access to the computers. Next, police drove to Dennis Rader's house and saw the black Jeep Cherokee parked in the driveway, the same one from the Home Depot footage. At this point, police had a good amount of circumstantial evidence against Dennis Rader, but circumstantial evidence is rarely enough to convict a murderer. So police took another route in hopes of capturing this killer.
They obtained a warrant to test the DNA from Dennis's daughter's pap smear. The results eventually came back and showed that the DNA from Vicky Wedgerall's fingernails had a strong familial match to the DNA from the pap smear. This was a huge win for the police, and they were more than ready to move forward with the process of apprehending and prosecuting this monster. On February 25, 2005, police were finally able to arrest the infamous BTK serial killer. Police pulled Dennis over close to his home at 12:15 p.m. as he was on his lunch break. At the station, police interviewed Dennis for nearly 30 hours over the course of 2 days. During their search of Rader's belongings, police found 7 3-ring binders and 25 hanging folders that contained writings, drawings, newspaper clippings, photos, and more.
He was like a scrapbooker.
Oh, yeah. I bet he was down at the local Michael's or Hobby Lobby like every week.
He cropped till he dropped. On February 28, 2005, Dennis was officially charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder. On March 1st, his bond was set at $10 million, and he was appointed a public defender. On April 19th, Dennis waived his preliminary hearing. On May 3rd, Dennis entered 10 not guilty pleas at his arraignment. His trial was set for June 27th. When his trial finally began, Dennis changed his plea to guilty on all 10 counts. The judge went through each plea, and Dennis detailed each murder in great length for the judge and for all the court spectators. On July 26, 2005, Dennis's wife Paula filed for divorce. On August 18th, Dennis was sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences. He would be eligible for parole in 175 years. At the time of Dennis's crimes, the state of Kansas did not have the death penalty. Dennis currently spends his days in solitary confinement at the El Dorado Correctional Facility. Holy crap.
Yeah, it's about an hour from here. It's between Emporia and Wichita. He's allowed like an hour out a day, and he gets 3 showers a week.
Whatever, why don't they just put him back in Gen Pop and let him take care of him?
I guess, because then he won't serve his time. Death is an easy way out, I guess. Dennis's mother passed away in the fall of 2007. Dennis later admitted that he would have left a 3rd cereal box, Raisin Bran for B, finishing out BTK, on March 17th with a bomb and a doll resembling Shirley, but he was captured before he could execute his plan. That had to bother him, that he didn't, finish out.
Do you think he went and bought these dolls, from the store?
Oh, God.
Went and looked.
Or they're leftovers from his daughter.
Oh, that's even creepier.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Dad, what are you doing?
Right.
Eating Raisin Bran, playing a doll.
Normal dad stuff. You can find more information about Dennis Rader in the book we took some of our notes from, Dr. Catherine Ramsland's book, Confession of a Serial Killer. The book is what Dr. Ramsland refers to as a guided autobiography. She and a friend wrote to Dennis for over 5 years, and she used his letters to write the book. You can also listen to Dennis detail all 10 murders at his trial, which is where we took the details for the actual murders. There will be a link in the show notes. It's definitely worth watching because he's just so nonchalant about detailing all of these horrendous crimes.
It's great. He has like no personality in his voice. When he describes them, it's almost certain.
It's incredible to listen to because it's not scary at all. At least to me, it would sound like me just reading these off. I have no attachment to it. So, did you learn anything new about BTK?
You know what? He communicated with the police and media 11 times in total.
That's a lot.
And he always wrote, it is. And he always wrote in book form, labeling chapters.
Man.
Interesting.
It is. You know, he had fun coming up with that fake autobiography.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I don't know. I was looking through some of his art and some of his writing. His writing's
horrible.
But his art, I mean, he really, really, really wanted to have a signature.
His signature, where he writes BTK, it's almost Zodiac Killer-like.
It is.
Do you have any final thoughts on BTK?
No.
We covered a lot.
We did. He's so boring.
Oh, thank God you said that. I didn't want to say it and hurt your feelings. He really was.
He's so vanilla.
Even with his fetish, he's still vanilla. So, Amy and I have some really cool news. Amy is going to start working on an art piece that will be purchasable, and it's going to be the blueprints of BTK's lair that he wanted to put together.
Lair.
Are you excited to work on that?
I am. Definitely, because, I mean, we found out we both have the H.H. Holmes blueprints for his hotel.
Oh, that piece is so cool.
I love it. I was telling you earlier that I always used to draw, like, buildings and towns and stuff. So when I saw that piece, I gravitated towards it.
So we'll keep you updated and let you know when they're for sale. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to get my hands on one, and I can't wait to show everyone your art. Can you remind everyone where they can find you?
Sure. Etsy. Etsy.com/shop/angellustart. Or you can always get me on Twitter at Amy Delicat, AMYDELAKAT. Oh, Instagram too. You can get there from Twitter, so look at it.
And she can draw anything. For instance, the first communication I had with her, I was introduced through my friend Kim, and she actually drew H.H. Gnomes for the stickers that I give out. And so that was the first thing. And so then when I started a new podcast, I was like, can you please draw this for me? And she just blew my mind. And ever since then, I'm always sending her ideas. And
I like using other people's ideas and creating it for them because I know how hard it is with somebody having an idea in their mind and not being able to physically put it onto paper or onto a computer screen. So that's where that's my strong point. So if you need any kind of design, any kind of art, labels, any kind of stickers, logos, anything, I got you.
Yeah, and she's really reasonably priced. Like, when she gave me the price for the logo, I was like, are you sure it's not $1 million? Because that's what it looks like it should cost. It's so freaking good. And I didn't even ask her to, I don't think I even asked you to redo anything because you made my vision come true in such a way that I just never even realized was possible. And you just continue to do it. Aww. And I hate you for it, but also love you. And so I'm really glad you came on the show because I wanted everyone to know who you are, because the logo is probably my favorite thing I've ever seen, and people need to know you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you for coming along for the ride, Amy.
Thanks for taking me. I love road trips.
They're so fun. Until next time, please remember to check your back seats, and I'll see you at the next rest stop. Thank you to content editor Laura Taylor for making my research sound coherent. And thank you to Mark for lending his voice for the poems and letters. couldn't have been easy. BTK's writing was horrible. I am happy to announce a contest for everyone who leaves a review. If you leave a review in the month of August or September, you will be entered to win the Murder Road Trip Survival Pack. You can find more details on our website or at any social media site. H.H. Gnomes and I would like to do something to help the residents and animals of the recent hurricanes. For the rest of August and September, you can send me $1 or more, and I will send you a sticker in return. I will then donate 100% of the proceeds to the Red Cross or the SPCA. You can send your donation through PayPal to murderroadtrippodcast@gmail.com. Please make sure to put your name and address in the comment section of PayPal. I will be making weekly donations so the money gets there before October 1st. You can find Murder Road Trip at murderroadtrip.com, on Instagram and Twitter at murdertrip, and on Facebook at MRT Podcast. If you're interested in continuing the discussion, you can join the Murder Road Trip podcast group on Facebook. Make sure to check out the Murder Road Trip playlist on Spotify. You can even add songs to the playlist. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice. If you'd like to listen to the episodes before everyone else, listen to bonus content, and get exclusive merchandise, you can check out Murder Road Trip on Patreon. September's bonus episode will cover John Emil List. Please stay tuned after the music to hear from some other great podcasts.
Hi, this is Christy Lee, host of the Canadian True Crime Podcast. My podcast tells Canadian stories of cruel people who committed heinous acts and honors innocent victims who are no longer with us. I start with a deep dive into the story of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka, with information you probably haven't heard, and then I venture into some lesser-known Canadian crime stories. You can find me on your favorite podcast app. Just search for Canadian True Crime.
Hey guys, it's Lainey, host of the True Crime Fan Club podcast. If you're a true crime addict like I am, then my podcast is for you. It's a podcast for the ultimate true crime enthusiast, giving you a glimpse into the life and crimes of the most demented minds. You won't want to miss an episode.
Hi, this is Steven, the host of Trace Evidence, a true crime podcast focused on missing persons and unsolved murders. If you're a true crime fan like I am, then you're haunted by the questions for which there are no answers and the names of the victims who so rightfully deserve them. Tara Calico, Lauren Spear, Rico Harris, Suzanne Joven, Dorothy Scott, Jesse Ross, Sky Metawala, Rachel Trelisa, Arliss Perry, Aisha Degree. You know their names, but do you know their stories? Trace Evidence is available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, and more. Visit trace-evidence.com for more information.
Hi, I'm Josh Hallmark, the host and producer of Our Americana and the Karen and Ellen Letters. And on August 23rd, I'll be bringing you a new show. Playlist brings together some of your favorite podcasters to share their favorite music. Each week, we have a new theme and a new roundtable of music curators. Together, we'll talk music.
This song is completely meaningless. It's basically like about a guy who wants to get laid but is kind of failing.
They were like, does anyone want like Gaga crossed with Katy Perry crossed with like a gutter?
I kind of agree with everything that all of you had said. It's an adult love. And it's not something you hear in a lot of love songs. It's a different love. It's a difficult love.
Get personal.
I literally started crying because I was like, I feel it now. I feel exactly how this song feels. Like he is my person, my puzzle piece, everything. And I never thought that would happen for me, that I would love somebody that deeply. And so that song means a lot to me.
Yeah, I think I was missing whatever gene normal females get with the romance, because I was more likely to feel like that from like a Nine Inch Nails song.
I love this song ironically, like it's so cheesy, and it's like I liked the video because it was porny and I was like 13 and there's like, where else are you gonna find it?
Laugh.
She's like a hipster Sarah McLachlan. That was something I wrote down while I was listening to it. I wrote hipster Sarah McLachlan.
First and foremost, I'm very impressed, Steven, that you've managed to out-gay the two gay guys tonight.
I don't even know what that means.
I mean, I grew up in Fort Collins, Colorado, and there's no songs about Fort Collins, Colorado, so. And if there probably shouldn't be. I'm not saying there should be, so. It's not that special.
Drink.
I have a wine out of Cass Vineyards. This is a Paso Robles Rockin' One Red Blend. I've chosen it for the name, which I feel like is kind of self-explanatory.
Argue.
So, 1996, I graduated. Don't laugh, guys. I see you laughing, Steven.
No, I'm laughing because I'm like, she's gonna hate me and Tawny.
Well, I was 99, so Christy, we would have at least been in high school together.
In 1999, I was in the 3rd grade.
Oh, go fuck yourself, Steven. Tawny, I feel like we've just met. We're off to a really good start. I wrote notes, and what I wrote is not so much notes as it is a rant. So I'm just going to read verbatim what I wrote and apologize in advance, and probably when I'm done. What I'm about to say is going to make me sound like a giant dick.
So when you said earlier that you were very scared about telling somebody you didn't like their song, you were talking about me. Is that right, Steven?
Just this one.
Steven,
Just this one.
I've known Jason for 10 years, and I can tell you he's coming for you.
I'm so afraid. Okay, because here's the thing. There's no reason not to come for me.
There, I said it. Yeah, deal with it.
Oh my God.
I don't know what was just said because I don't know what any of it means.
This fighting word, Steven.
And dance.
I dance constantly, just not at a place where dancing is appropriate.
I mean, if James Brown tells you to get up off your butt, you better freaking do it, okay?
This week's theme is love song, the songs that make us swoon the most. This week's theme is High School Never Ends, the songs that take us back to our high school days. This week, Hometown Glory, our favorite songs about the places we've lived. This week's theme is Pretty Good Year, our favorite songs so far from 2017. This week's theme is Dancing in the Dark, the songs that never fail to get us on our feet. And tonight I'm playing music with
Katie Ward. I'm host of The Enthusiasm Enthusiast.
I'm Charlie. I am a host at Insight.
Stephen Pappas, host of Is This Adulting?
I'm Chris Brayton, and I'm the co-host of the More Gooder Than podcast.
Christy Lee from the Canadian True Crime Podcast.
I'm Hannah. I co-host Film Roast.
And I'm Paul Chomo. I am one half of the Varmints podcast.
And I'm Lainey Hobbs, the host of the True Crime Fan Club podcast.
Iris. I don't know Iris.
Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls?
Okay. No. Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm clear now. Yeah, okay. No. We're all cut up. Josh, I'm sorry that you were a guest. I apologize, but now I'm on the right page with everybody. I'll see myself out. Hey guys, I'll see you later. I'll see you later. I'll just show myself out.